A lot of people have the idea that I am against parents. This isn't actually the case, but where people get this idea from is that I teach reality. And the reality is, you didn't just pop out like you are. The reality is, you are actually the byproduct of cause and effect. Now, even though there are certain vibrational frequencies that you opt into as part of your incarnation process, what psychologists actually have right is that the majority of the formation of your personality actually is the result of adaptations to your early social environment. That's right. It's mom and dad, or whoever your caregivers were. If something goes wrong with a website, you go back to how the code was written. And it's no different than what we do with our own lives. We have to do the same thing to discover how our own faulty programming was installed and what it's causing us to do in our adult lives. We have to change the pattern that was adopted by us in those formative years, and then repeat it over and over again. The reality is even the most well-meaning parents on the planet create faulty programming for their children. Also, the reality is I have shaken hands with probably 5 parents so far over the course of my entire career that actually have the capacity to own that they created this faulty patterning unconsciously in their child. Most parents, for refusal to look at this faulty patterning within themselves that was propagated to their children, and because of wanting to avoid guilt and shame, they vehemently defend that faulty programming that is in fact destroying their children's lives. My grand vision is for all people, no matter what role they play in each other's lives, to be able to heal together. This means it is not my intention to separate children from their parents. Hell no. In my perfect universe, parents would heal along with their children. But here's the thing. What my goal is, above and beyond everything else, is awareness. My goal is to break people free of their faulty patterning, and this means anyone who sits in front of me. Where this goes terribly wrong is when a family makes the belonging inside the family group dependent upon the upholding of these faulty patterns. If I had my way, when one person in a family changed a pattern for the better, all other members of that family would do this for themselves and thus create better relationships in the entire family system. This is the real reason why parents even have specific children in the first place. The greater universe is concerned with the growth and expansion and joy of all beings in existence. This universe always pairs children with parents when they hold the key to their self-awareness. This is a child who is supposed to switch a parent's pattern to be in alignment with that parent's actual desires. Parents either realize this and shift, or resist that shift, and by doing so, turn against their own child. The reason that a parent can't usually see that a child is going to make them a match to their actual desires is, be careful what you wish for. If a person really wants something, but there's a pattern in their programming that is preventing that thing they really want, then the child will come in as an antithesis to that pattern that they're upholding. Now, there's a lot of reasons why someone upholds a pattern. And when the child exists as an oppositional force to that pattern that they're upholding, either they change it or they perceive the child as an antagonist. They will think when this is occurring that this child is not what they really wanted. For example, if a mother gives up on her own deep career desires to have a child, she will slip into a pattern of self-sacrifice. Her child will seem completely self-centered and ungrateful to her. Really, this child has come to get the mother out of her pattern of self-sacrifice, so she will choose to pursue the career purpose she had intended. If this mother shifts contrary to her current perspective, this child will actually support that choice in the mother. If she doesn't, this relationship will deteriorate. It will cause the mother to doubt even having a child in the first place, because this child did not give the validation and guaranteed love that she thought she would get out of that pattern of self-sacrifice. The reality is that the number one need for a physical human is connection and closeness within the social group. And this is really scary, because it means that we will uphold faulty patterning for the sake of closeness with a social group to the absolute detriment of our own lives. We will keep these patterns. We will defend these patterns. And first and foremost, we will defend the people who programmed us with these patterns, our parents, no matter the risk to ourselves. This means whether you want to admit it or not, whether it was their intention or not, The programming that you were given in your early life and the people who programmed you with it were the problem. A lot of people feel like accepting this and changing those patterns is in fact a betrayal to their parents. Now I want to challenge this for you for a minute. You can't actually argue that changing these faulty patterns is betraying your parents unless you are also willing to accept that in order to be in a relationship with them, you have to in fact uphold things that hurt you. In other words, you also have to be willing to accept that your parents are right, that by breaking free of damaging patterns and getting happy, you are betraying them. If so, you need to take a look at that for a minute, because I'm pretty sure that is the definition of a terrifying/abusive relationship. Seeing and accepting the rather unsavory reality of your specific family is not betraying them, and it also does not imply that you have to end your relationship to them. Some people, when they become aware of patterns, become aware of the whole dynamic of their family, the reality of it and the truth, some people may choose to separate from their parents, either temporarily or permanently. Other times, people see those patterns and manage to actually shift them so that they can develop an even closer relationship to their family than they ever had before. Unfortunately, a lot of whether a person chooses to do one thing or the other thing in this scenario depends upon a lot of specific circumstances. Basically, there are variables in every situation, including the receptivity of the family, that make it so that a person can either change and develop closer relationships or change and not have relationships with their family. That is also not something that I control. All this being said, and all this needing to have been said, I'm going to tell you something today that has the capacity to change the way that you view life entirely. And it's this. After you no longer live with your parents and therefore are no longer under the influence of the programmers of those faulty programs that you may be experiencing in your life, your parents are not the problem. Your parents within you are the problem. Let me explain. When we feel hurt by someone in the past and we feel doomed because we can clearly see that a pattern that was installed in us is damaging us instead of assisting us, we tend to feel powerless, and as a result afraid, and as a result angry at the cause of that pattern. This is why it's so common for a person to be really, really angry at their parents in one phase during the process of healing. But this eventually leads to more powerlessness and therefore inhibited healing, because you cannot change them, can you? If they change, it's entirely up to them. They have free will. Because of this, let's be honest, often it feels like you're healing in spite of them. This all changes when you realize something. Your parents are inside you. It is not your external parents that keep the detrimental pattern alive. It is your parents internalized. Consciousness itself functions like water. If you zoom out to watch a river from above, you can see that that river branches off into several smaller rivers. In other words, our consciousness fragments. When our consciousness fragments, our sense of self becomes fragmented. This means that even though we have one body, we have multiple selves within that body. Most of us simply see these as different sides to the personality. But if you look at them the way they really are, it's more like boxes. The best way to picture this is to imagine that inside your body you have a collection of Siamese twins. To understand this completely and in depth, watch my video titled Fragmentation, the Worldwide Disease. In this video, I also propose a method that will help you to understand the solution to the information I will provide in the rest of this video. What most people don't know is that every single child copes with their childhood environment in a very specific way. They internalize their relationship with their parents by creating an internal Siamese twin to perfectly mirror each parent. The primary reason that a child will do this is to establish rapport with a person upon whom their life depends. The second reason that a child does this is to actually take control away from the parent. They do this so that the relationship, and especially conflict, can take place internally and under the perceived control of the child instead of externally and out of control of the child. For example, let's say that a parent has a pattern of continuously humiliating their child. This child will create an internal fragment of their own consciousness, who is a perfect mirror of the one that is humiliating them, a perfect mirror of mom or dad, depends on who the humiliator is. It humiliates him or her before their parent does. The idea behind this is that if he or she takes over this job, not only do they control the humiliation and therefore it hurts less, he or she might also be able to do it before the parent has a chance to do it, thus decreasing the rate of humiliation. But this part, now internalized, presents a little bit of a problem. Even though it was a coping technique that managed to save their life when they were living with mom and dad, this pattern exists long, long after this person moves out of the house, long into adulthood. This means even though mom or dad is not there to humiliate you, you are walking around the world with a part inside you that is consistently humiliating you. One of the best examples of this internalized parent fragment going horribly, horribly wrong is self-hate. Self-hate is one of the most dangerous adaptations a person can develop. To understand this in depth, watch my video titled Self-Hate, the Most Dangerous Coping Mechanism. This also has drastic implication for people who were given away to adoption or whom were born to parents that didn't actually want them but kept them anyway. What this means is that you have internalized a part that is a mirror of that aspect of mom and dad that continually doesn't want you and that may try to give you away. Here's a fun little hint. Fragments within a person's consciousness function like boxes within a larger box. Every personality fragment that is created as a mirror to your relationship with dad will belong to the bigger fragment that mirrors your dad. For example, if dad lacks empathy, you may have a part of yourself that lacks empathy. If he is constantly criticizing you, you may have a part that constantly criticizes you from the inside. If he is a hyperachiever, you may have a part of yourself that is a hyperachiever. These parts you could either be identified with or you could suppress. All three of these parts, small boxes, actually fit into the larger fragment, larger box within your consciousness, of dad within me. What I can tell you is that it is way harder to change a pattern if you are continuously being programmed with that pattern. This is why it is so incredibly hard to heal in your childhood environment. Have you noticed that it's like you go out into the real world and it feels a little bit better most of the time, then you go home and you're right back to the same pattern? It's because you're under the influence of the original programmer before having really changed those patterns. Also, it has to be said that sometimes when you change a pattern, you're not even vibrationally able within the universe at large to share the same space with that person. Sometimes it's personal preference, but sometimes it's actually literally just the law of attraction at work. For example, it's way harder to change a pattern of low self-esteem into self-worth if you're living with the people who berate you. And if you develop self-esteem, the likelihood is that you will not choose to be near people who berate you, or vibrationally you may be in a space where quite literally because of the law of attraction you won't even be able to step into the same room with people who would decrease your self-esteem. But here is the best news you will probably ever hear. In order to change these patterns, you don't actually need to change your relationship with your actual parents at all. This means they don't even have to be alive. You don't need your parents to change in order for you to heal. Your healing has nothing to do with whether they change or don't. All you need to do is improve the relationship between the internalized fragments that are a reflection of your parents and whatever parts are opposite of those parts of you, the parts they oppose. The most ironic thing of all is that it is only by doing this that you can actually change your relationship to your actual parents. Working with the internalized fragment that is a perfect mirror of your parent, basically your parent internalized, is the healing that you've been looking for. To understand healing completely, I suggest you watch my video titled What is Healing? It is when we change a detrimental internal pattern to its opposite that we see how to change that pattern in the external world. I cannot tell you how many people have worked with and created resolve with and brought healing for these patterns that are a part of the internalized aspect of their parents, and had that completely shift the way they see their parents, and therefore completely shift the way they interact with their parents, and therefore create incredible openings for the healing with the parent themselves in the external world. In a perfect world, we would only be programmed with that which will benefit us throughout the course of our lives. In a perfect world, any time we realized that something our parent did or didn't do programmed us in a way that was detrimental and we brought that to them, our parent would instantly go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Wait, I gotta shift it in me. and now I'm going to shift the way I behave with you and provide the missing experience. Alas, we do not live in a perfect world, yet. We live in a world where people are constantly expanding. And people are more or less resistant to that expansion. The reality is that most of you who are still telling the story that your childhood was great, or at least good by comparison, are avoiding looking at your own faulty programming, which everyone else can see, because of fear. And that fear is perfectly understandable. Even if it is resistance to your own expansion and the progress of human society within the world in general. For those of you who actually do see that faulty programming, the reality is you didn't deserve it. The reality is it was unfair. The reality is, even though some esoteric part of you may have chosen this for your life in general, that doesn't mean that anyone would consciously choose this, so it isn't your fault. This means it really sucks that you can't have your childhood back for a do-over. But the good news is, you're not doomed. The good news is that the future is not decided. At any point, you can break free of the pattern of determinism, and with your free will, shift a pattern which shifts everything that you are enmeshed to in this universe. It is possible to break free of this path of determinism with conscious awareness. It is more than possible to change the patterns within yourself that are currently causing you heartache in your adult life. And the way to do it is to change the patterns within the parents within yourself. Have a good week.